everybody, to episode 12 of Book Writing Tips, quick tips for new and seasoned authors. And I am your host, Alba Arango. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about using tenses in your writing. And so part one, we're going to talk about the different tenses, past tense versus present tense, but more specifically in using tenses in writing a book. And then in part two, we're going to get into what are the most common tenses in the different genres of books. So depending on what you're writing, you may want to use a different tense. So with no further ado, let's get to it. All right, let's jump right into part one, the different tenses in writing a book. First of all, I think we'll focus on past tense. Most fiction books are written in past tense, but not all. And I want to talk about what really is past tense. So in your writing, when you use verbs that are in the past tense in narration, then the book is considered in past tense. So for example, the sentence, Steve jumped into the car and sped away. That is past tense. The two verbs in there are both in the past tense. So you're talking about something that has happened in the past. Now that could be third person or omniscient, but it's also true in first person. You can do past tense in first person. So for example, I jumped into the car and sped away. Now I changed the point of view from third or omniscient to first person, but the verbs are still in past tense. And on a side note, if you don't know what I mean about the points of view being, third person or omniscient or first person, I did do a whole separate podcast on points of view. So I'll put a link to that in the description. So if you wanted to go to that to kind of find out what the difference is between third person limited, omniscient, and first person, there you go. Now, past tense is different than present tense. So if you're writing in present tense, then everything is happening as you write. So for example, if I said, I jump into the car and speed away, my verbs are now in the present tense, and that puts the reader right there with me, meaning they're in the car with me as I go, and everything is happening like while I'm writing, like while I am telling the story is developing. So the writer is in there. That's much more immediate than past tense. And of course, you could do present tense in a third person or omniscient as well. Steve jumps into the car and speeds away. Again, you need to change your verbs all into the present tense so that you have that flow of it being immediate. It's happening right now. One thing you do need to be careful with, and that is one thing I had to make sure when I was starting off as a writer that I did not do, because I noticed it in my writing, and I've noticed it in other kind of young authors' writings as well, is that you go back and forth between the two. You're in present tense, and then suddenly you're in past tense, and your verbs need to match. Now, in saying that, let me clarify, I don't mean in dialogue. Dialogue is like a whole different thing. So you could be writing your entire thing in present tense. So everything that's happening right now in first person, let's say, I jump into the car and speed away. But if I'm speaking, I could be, call on my cell phone and then be like, I cannot believe that happened. And I could be using past tense verbs in my dialogue. And that's, of course, totally acceptable. Dialogue is what someone is saying, as opposed to the narration. So when you're talking the narration, whether it's in first person or third person or omniscient, limited, just make sure your verbs are the same tense. And you probably want to remain in that same tense for the duration of your book in narration. However, there is a way you can go back and forth. So I have seen in some books where there are different timelines. And so sometimes I've seen an author do one chapter in present and then do that in present tense. So things are developing that. But then the next chapter is something that, flashes back to like World War II. And then the narration there changes to past tense. And that is definitely something you could do. It's tricky, but you certainly can do that. You just have to be careful that you differentiate for your reader when you are in present tense and when you are switching to past tense, usually with a chapter change. So that way the the reader knows which timeline they are in. And you can do it that way with present tense and past tense, and it does work. Now, before we get on to part 2, it's time for our crazy law/writing prompt. So every week I give you a law that was once upon a time a true law in history, and your challenge is to write a story as to why you think that may have whatever happened that made them make that a law. And this is not, something that you're going to prove to be true or untrue. It's just a way to flex your writing muscles. So here you go. Today's crazy law. In Knoxville, Tennessee, it is against the law to lasso a fish. Okay, now personally, I think it'd be kind of cool to see someone lasso a fish. I mean, I've never actually seen anyone lasso a fish, so I think it'd be kind of cool. But what on earth made that a law? Like, what happened that they actually felt they needed to make that a law? So there you go. That's your writing challenge for today. Okay, part 2. What are the most common tenses for the different genres? So I want to start with fiction. Now, there's a lot of subgenres within fiction, like a lot. So what I did in general first, I went to the New York Times, and I'm looking at like literally the current New York Times best-selling list for July 20th. That's like the newest list. And I looked at the top 5 hardcover fiction books. Now, these are all different genres, subgenres within fiction, but they are all fiction. And so for the 5 hardcover fiction books right now on the New York Times bestseller list, 3 are written in past tense. 1 is written in present tense, interestingly, by Stephen King. And then there was 1 that was written in both. And it had that kind of different timelines with 1 present, 1 past, which I think is pretty cool. Now, I thought that was interesting. So 3 in past tense, 1 in present, and then 1 that kind of did both. But if you look at YA hardcover, there are 3 in past tense and 2 in present tense. But what really stuck out to me for YA is 4 of the 5 top-selling books right now are in first person, which I did find interesting that the trend now in YA is leaning much more towards first person, where you don't really see that in adult fiction as much. But again, this is not about points of view, it's about tenses. So in fiction, we do see most books are written in past tense with some in present tense. Now, if I'm going to break it down, let me just share with you, first of all, there is no right or wrong tense for you to use. I'm never going to tell you that you should always write in past tense or you should always write in present tense in any genre. It's your book. You're going to write it however you want to write it. I will only suggest that it's best, because readers prefer it, to keep the same tense throughout the book, unless you're doing different timelines, and it's okay. But there is no right or wrong. So write your book. And if you're unsure what to do, I'm going to tell you one of the things that I did. Now, I have 2 different series, and they're both middle grade, so ages 9 to 12 is the target audience. And for me, they're both in past tense. One is in third person and one is in first person, but they are both in past tense. Now, I have currently started a new trilogy for YA, and the first book is done. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but we'll see what happens with that. But I wasn't sure what to do because I know it is trendy to do present tense first person in YA. And 2 of the top 5 right now in the New York Times bestseller list are, present tense first person. Now, I knew I wanted it to be in first person. That I did know, but I just wasn't sure about the present tense. Like, I've never written a book in present tense. So what I did is I was like maybe 50 pages into the book, and I was like, should I try present tense? So what I did is I took the first 2 chapters, and I had written them in past tense, and I rewrote them in present tense. And then I read them aloud to myself in present tense. And then I read the original, which was in past tense. And I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear it aloud to see how it sounded, which sounded better to me. And I just preferred my story in past tense. So I finished the book and I wrote the whole thing in past tense. Now that might be a good idea for you to try out. Like write one in present tense, like the same chapter in present tense and in past tense to see which one you think sounds better. Make sure you read it aloud because that's how you really get a feel for how it sounds. You might even have someone else read it out loud so that you can listen to them read it and see what you think as you hear it aloud. Now, let's get down to what is the most popular in different genres. I am going to focus on fiction first. So, I think I've already mentioned this, but present tense is a lot more immediate. It's like there's like this intimacy with the character that you're in first person, but you are literally right there as things are unfolding. So the best genres for writing in present tense seem to be, from what I have seen, in thriller, sometimes in horror. They tend to be really just edge of your seat kind of action books, because you are literally right there as the action is going because it's in present tense. So if you're writing a thriller, or if you're writing a spy book, or if you are writing a horror book, you might want to check out writing it in present tense to see what you think, to see if it lends just that level of immediacy to your book. Now, that goes for edge of the seat kind of books, but what I have seen is mysteries tend to be in past tense. So if you're writing a mystery, whether it's a cozy mystery or whatever kind of historical mystery, whatever kind of mystery you're writing, they do tend to be in past tense. And I think part of the reason why is that level of immediacy isn't really there. Like, you want the reader to kind of soak in the scene, soak in what is being seen by your characters, what is going on, and take your time in it because it is a mystery. So you want to throw in those red herrings and you want people to see them. That immediacy doesn't really need to be there. And I think the same is true for romance. I've seen I'm actually not sure the last romance book I saw written in present tense. They tend to be in past tense as well, but I don't read a lot of romance. So I could be mistaken. Perhaps there is a new trend where people are writing in present tense, but that is something, if you are writing in romance, you really can go to the top romance books. And on Amazon, they let you preview the first sample chapter or whatever. Take a look and see what is going on in these books being published in 2025 that are on the Amazon bestseller list to kind of see what people are really digging. Obviously, historical fiction is most likely written in past tense. I mean, I guess you could write it in, present tense. It would be a different spin on it because it would be historical fiction that's kind of happening while it's done. But I haven't seen very much of that. Now, all of that is for fiction. If you are writing nonfiction, it is a completely different world. Most nonfiction books, so if you're writing a biography or an autobiography, they're going to be in past tense because you're telling someone's life. Even if it's your own life, you're telling someone's life. So you're going to be using past tense because these are all things that have already happened, not that are happening as we speak. Now, an exception to this is going to be memoir. And memoir is just a slice of life. So your autobiography is a story of your whole life. This happened in my childhood, and then I went into school, and then my 20s, and then my 30s, and then the inciting incident that changed my life, and then blah, 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 blah. But a memoir is just a slice of that. For most people, it's that turning point in their life that they're writing about. And because of that, what I have seen is the trend is for writing a memoir in present tense so that the reader is kind of experiencing this with you. And you might want to think about that if you're writing memoir. I've seen them in both past tense and present tense, and they both work. So that might be something for you definitely to try out if you're writing memoir to see which one you like better. However, if you are writing a self-help or a how-to book, they're almost always I think all the ones I've ever seen are in present tense. You're telling someone how to do something, not how they should have done it. And that sounds like a book I would write. You should have done this. No, that's not what people want to see in a self-help book. They want to see what you should do. And of course, they are usually written in second person as well, because you're telling people what to do using the word you should, not you should have. So you want it to be in present tense. So again, self-help, how to, all those types of books are usually in present tense. Now, if you want, again, to see that point of view because you're not sure about what I'm talking about, first person, second person, third person limited, and omniscient, then please, please, please go to the link. Take a look at. I'm going to have it in the description of the Point of View podcast I did. And if you're enjoying my podcast, please comment. I would love to hear what you think about it. I'm not really getting a lot of comments, so I would definitely like to see more comments about what you would like to see or what you'd like to hear. And definitely like it, rate it. Anything you can do, subscribe, follow me. All of that is greatly appreciated. And I do a new podcast every Wednesday, so I will see you next week.